With the Planet Fitness Black Card, you don't just get a great workout, you get a great perk out because your membership is packed with perks. For $1 down and $24.99 a month, you'll get perks like access to any of our 2,400 clean and spacious locations. Bring a friend anytime and both work out with tons of equipment that'll give you that big fitness energy. Relax in the Black Card spa and more. Work out and perk out with the PF Black Card. Join for just $1 down and $24.99 a month.
Join the judgment-free zone today. Deal ends Thursday, August 10th.
See Home Club for details.
What's up, spectators? Thanks for coming back. Last week, we promised you guests, and we did not lie. This week, Jesus and I welcome Stray Dogs creator Tony Fleecs to the show to discuss the Grails he holds most dear and what's next for his lovable pups. So saddle up, you bronies, and have your pets spayed or neutered. This is episode 18.
This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spectators, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
Hello and welcome everybody to episode 18 of Spectales, a comic book podcast where we focus on telling the stories of the people who collect and create the stories we love. Thank you for tuning in. We're your hosts, Jake, and he's Jesus. Jesus, how's it going?
It is going astronomical today.
Oh yeah? Was that the word of the day?
That was actually last night's word, but I just wanted to go ahead and carry it over for today.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Sounds good. No, I understand why you use that word. Last week we teased that we were going to have some big guests coming up on the show, and this week we're back to make good on that promise. We've got a really big guest on the show today. Our guest this week is a prolific and critically acclaimed comic book creator. His resume reads like a comic nerd's wet dream. He's done everything. I'm serious. He's done everything from independent titles like 2016's Jeff Steinberg, Champion of Earth, to working extensively as a writer and an artist on multiple My Little Pony titles. And he's even done some ridiculous variant covers for Venom, Spider-Man, and even Star Wars. So, like, seriously, he covers the spectrum. But he is perhaps best known for writing and creating the absolute smash hit of 2021, Stray Dogs. He is Tony Fleecs. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hey, fellas. Happy to be here.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope I did justice to your extensive resume. I just couldn't fit everything into the intro. But seriously, though, I mean, the list of stuff you've worked on is ridiculous.
Yeah, man. I've been hustling for a little while here. I've been putting in work. So
no, that's good, and it certainly has paid off. I guess I wanted to kind of come in and just say, obviously, everybody loves Stray Dogs. It's been huge, and I honestly remember when the FOC date was, because I was talking to my LCS owner and we were talking about the title, and I was like, I definitely want in on that book. And then I immediately got, the cover A and cover B. I don't know what, seriously, cover B on all of the books just went nuts. And I'm sure we'll get into that later, but in general, thank you very much for coming on. I can't wait to kind of go into what we have. And I know Jesus is as well, right, Jesus?
Yeah, man, there's a lot of I don't know, meat on this Grail tale here, so I'm definitely wanting to dig in.
Nice. Well, I'm excited too. This is going to be astronomical.
Tony, just a little bit of background. Jesus is using word of the day toilet paper, so
Nice.
so we get graced with whatever word he's reading.
How does that work? Is there just one word on every square?
Yeah, I just get one square at a time right now.
I'd be using about 40 words a day. I'm not judicious with that.
Listen,
we're in a pandemic. We're in a pandemic.
This is a paragraph, honey. I'm gonna be in here a while.
Yeah, I'll be up to the SAT words and stuff.
Tony, I briefed you a little bit before the show, but for those listening and for your benefit, we're going to jump into 3 different segments. We'll kick it off with what we've recently picked up. Then we will jump into a Grail tale that, Tony, you will give to us, and we'll go over kind of what your Grail is or something of that sort. And then we'll close out the show with some speculation. A lot of our listeners, most of our listeners are collectors, people who are out there looking for books that are either going to be worth their time and money now for later, or they're just, looking for something that's about to pop off, whether they want to make money on it or not. So, and that's how we close out every show. Pretty simple.
Cool.
All right. So we always kick everything off with recent pickups. Jesus, you always go first. Let's do it.
All right, man. So I talked to you about this book off the podcast a while ago when we got some information about some casting, Werewolf by Night. So I was able to pick it up at a very good price. So I'm showing the Werewolf by Night #1, the Vareg variant. I think this is the book to get. I just think it's really cool. Has a really cool cover on it. So again, people are speculating that this is going to be this is the first appearance, of Werewolf by Night, but the version that's going to be in the MCU, which is now being cast, or the rumors are being cast by Gael Garcia Bernal, which is a Mexican actor.
He's a great actor, by the way. He's a really good actor. Motorcycle Diaries is my actual favorite movie that he's in. And so when I saw that they were casting him, I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah, Motorcycle Diaries is great. Y Tu Mamá También is probably a masterpiece. It's a great movie as well, which was one of his first movies. So yeah, that's why I picked it up. That's my recent pickup. It's a great book. I definitely recommend it for everybody. I think it's already starting to move up slowly. There's a bunch of variants of this book. This is not the most expensive variant by far, but I think it's one of the cooler variants just because of the cover.
Nice. And I had read on that the old Werewolf by Night series, but I haven't read the new one, so I'm excited to dive in myself to that at some point in time. Tony, in this particular case, if you've recently read something, or if you're a collector yourself, and it doesn't, is there anything recently that you've gotten into?
Yeah, I'm not like I don't spec. I'm just a regular Wednesday comic reader. As I've gotten older and have less room for books, I just read them, and then I give them away after I'm done with them. And if I'm really into it, I just will get the hardcover or the trade or something.
Yeah.
And then I have a shed that's just full of back issues in my backyard. And as stuff's been blowing up lately, I think about man, I bet there's some shit out there. I definitely think I have the Miles Morales book out there. The Ultimate Fallout. Just out there getting eaten by silverfish and
oh wow,
the old comic shed.
Yeah. But yeah, this week I actually read a bunch of books. I picked up The Human Target, the Tom King and Greg Smallwood.
Yep, it's on my list.
I thought that was a great start. Greg Smallwood is a genius, just a beautiful looking book. And it's a detective story set in Justice League International days, DCU. So that's cool.
Yep.
I'm excited about that. And then I also got New Burn, which is the Chip Zdarsky, Jacob Phillips book from Image.
Yeah.
And it's another detective book. He's a detective. He used to be a cop, and then he's a private detective now, but for the mob. So he works for all the families. And when there's a mystery, when there's a mob mystery and they can't go to the actual police, they call this guy, and he has to go investigate mob mysteries. So it's cool.
Basically, who whacked who without permission in the mob or something?
Yeah. Who whacked it? That was super good. I was I think I haven't read all of the Chip Zdarsky stuff.
Yep.
I was slow to pick it up, but this one a great start. I like it the most out of the stuff that I've read so far. And then I've been reading. I got the last part of the War of the Bounty Hunters, the Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so I just been reading that, but that's sort of, it's just mostly junk food reading, I don't think any of them, well, there was some cool art in it for sure. and what's his name? Civil War did the first issue. What's that guy's name? Steve McNiven.
Oh, I was thinking the movie. I was like, wait a minute, somebody got involved in the book. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. drew it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve McNiven did the first part of it, and then they've had some good artists on the rest of it. But I've just been sort of banging through that because I have the full thing now. It was too many issues to keep up with for me while it was coming out because I've just been busy. But now I'm reading it, and the issue for me, I guess, with it is it's about they took Han Solo's carbonite, like Han Solo's frozen carbonite. Boba Fett's taking him to Jabba, and he gets stolen, and so then Boba Fett's got to chase him down. But like we know, he ends up getting him back and delivering him to Jabba. So it's more about the adventure of him getting him back, I guess. But the whole time I'm just like, well, I know he's not going to die, and Darth Vader's not going to die, and Han Solo's not going to die, and Luke's got, like so.
So what's the risk here? Yeah,
yeah. So it's a little bit, like I said, it's sort of like junk food, just sort of.
While you were describing that, like the moment of time that they're picking, it has kind of a Rogue One-esque feeling to it, right? They're like, hey, we're just picking this moment that everybody glossed over, and we're going to tell the whole story about what happened during that time frame. But the problem is all of the main characters in the story you're reading survive.
So, there's no stakes, right? Like there's no stakes in those. You already know the ending.
So there are some comic book characters that are in there that like I'm attached to now. So I guess they could bite it, and that would fuck me up. It's like
that would suck.
Solo's in there, and Dr. Aphra is in there, and we don't know.
Oh yeah.
Later, so
nice. Mm-hmm. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and toss out what I recently picked up. And Tony, I'm going to say, obviously, I knew you were coming on, so I wanted to beef up on my knowledge of some of the stuff that you have written that I haven't read. So I have read quite a bit, but I went back and I read Rick and Morty, Worlds Apart from this year. And then I also went back and read Jeff Steinberg, Champion of the Earth.
Oh, cool.
And I gotta say, I mean, I love Rick and Morty, which is why I kind of gravitated to that. I love the show, that kind of thing. But, you know, that aside, I know there's a lot of Rick and Morty fans out there, but Jeff Steinberg, Champion of Earth, holy shit. That was a lot of fun to read.
Oh, that's great, man.
Yeah, no, we gotta talk about it a little bit here. So for those of you listening, it came out in 2006. 16 came out in 2016, and it really follows this lovable loser, Jeff Steinberg, and the opening of it had me laughing. Seriously, the whole time, like the first 5-10 pages, maybe it's the whole first issue, I'm trying to think now. But the whole first part, you're like, what is this? Like everybody's like, there's this bet about when this big thing is going to be, you know, and you think it's like super important. And it turns out like the whole opening is just this big elongated joke about our main character, Jeff. He made a bet with all of his friends, or they told him that they'd take him to this restaurant if he drank a whole bottle of glue. And so all of his friends have this ancillary bet over when the glue is gonna come out, and it's been a couple of weeks, and so everybody's betting on the date. It's like the birth of a baby, but just with glue and a man's ass. And so just from the get, I was laughing so hard, and then to come to the ending and how it all finalizes, and it's a great story and it really pays off well. But I gotta ask the question that maybe you get asked too much: when are we going to see the sequel?
I can tell you, I don't get asked that question too much. So the book, it came out in 2016, and it didn't light the world on fire. So it just sort of right now is just waiting for, you know, like I did it with Josh Fialkov, who's one of my best friends. We co-wrote it and I drew it. And like we would love to do more of it, but it's just like the economics of it and the time that it takes to put into it. So if there was like media stuff that happened or anything like that, which they talk about like every few months or whatever, Oni has like a pretty happening like Hollywood team that's out there pitching stuff all the time.
Oh, okay.
So every once in a while they call us up and they'll go like, so and so is looking at this, and we'll go like, okay. But
cool.
So if something happened on that end, we'd probably do another chapter, because we obviously it ends on like a to be continued, and and we have like what would be the next 4 volumes or so. So yeah,
well, and that volume was pretty dense. That I want to say. So I read it as one big chunk. I don't remember, like, when it came out, was it just one big graphic novel when it dropped?
When we wrote it, it was one big graphic novel, and then it took me so long to draw it, because I drew it over several years, just because I was working on, like, I got that gig and I got My Little Pony right at the same time, and then that gig didn't pay as well as My Little Pony, and it was creator owned, so it was like it was ours to do when we wanted to do it, but just like staying on top of it was tough. So by the time it finally came out, Oni had sort of moved out of doing just straight graphic novels and moved into doing singles. So we split it up and we added some new pages and stuff, and it came out as, I think, 7 issues. And the first issue was double sized, and then. So it got you all the way up into like the space stuff and the robots in the first issue.
Yeah, I didn't tease it well enough. I apologize. I was.
You
too
want me
busy
to do the pitch for it?
Yeah, definitely, because it's good. It's very good. I was too busy joking about the opening joke, but yeah, yes, please do.
It's you know how Green Lantern gets chosen by who on Earth has the most willpower? Like that's sort of what the jump on is, sort of like that. And Last Starfighter. Aliens come to the planet Earth and they say, we're going to pick a champion from all the people on Earth, and he's going to compete in challenges. And if he passes and if he proves humanity's worth to us, we'll let the Earth survive. And if he fails, we're going to knock you back to the Stone Age. You can start over. And so they run this scan on the whole world to see who has the most willpower, choose a champion. And at that moment, our guy, Jeff Steinberg, like Jake had said, had drank a bottle of glue a couple weeks earlier. And right now he's just been so constipated for so long, and he's just now pushing through. And so like at that very moment, he's the guy on Earth with the most willpower on Earth, and he gets chosen, but he's just a that idiot.
It's just a great premise. Just that alone, if people are listening and not wanting to go find it and read it, and I want to say it was actually quite easy for me to find, at least for me. It's very accessible, and I think in this particular case, everybody should be just giving it a go, because the art is good, it's fun, it is a storyline that, and I mean this in all sincerity and as a compliment, it doesn't ever take itself too seriously, right? Like it follows the storyline and it does a really great job, but it's never too serious ever. It's always making a dick or a fart or a masturbation joke of some kind, and it just keeps going all the way to the end. Literally to the end. I'm pretty sure there is a joke about an alien woman at the very, like, on the last page.
Yeah.
So anyway, I recently read that, and as much as I am a Rick and Morty fan, and I know that's a more recent work that you've done, which was great. Rick and Morty Worlds Apart. I also recommend that. Came out in September, everybody. But that is, I don't want to say your standard Rick and Morty fare. I mean, it is a unique, take with the characters, and it brings in a lot of characters like the dragons and stuff like that. They talked about. There was an episode of Rick and Morty, but it expands more. But Jeff Steinberg needs to be on everybody's to read list, in my opinion. So that's my recent pickup.
There's like 2 different kinds of Rick and Morty books. There's the ones that are like way out there and crazy, and then there's the ones that are more closely tied into the show. And ours was more closely tied into the show, so it takes a little. You have to bring a little bit with you when you're reading it. Like, you have to know the slut dragons. You have to know like Morty's other grandpa.
Yeah.
And like, if you're steeped in your Rick and Morty knowledge, you get that, and you're just like, oh, like the War of the Bounty Hunters, right? You're like, this is some more adventure that I didn't know about. But I know none of these people die, except I guess the slut dragons could all die. We don't see them now. But Jeff Steinberg.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead, Tony.
Oh, Jeff Steinberg is like it's not the full story. Like it's the full first volume of a brand new thing. So you don't have to bring anything with you. You can just sort of open it up and go. And looking at Amazon right now, you can get one for $2.80. So I would recommend grabbing that trade. It seems to be affordable in the used and new offers.
Yeah, I like I said, I thought it was fairly easy to get, and it was certainly worth the get. I enjoyed it thoroughly. So, as much as I'd love to continue talking about the Jeff Steinberg and everything else of the world, I think it's time that we moved into the Grail Tale, Tony. I'd love to hear. I really don't know. We haven't briefed on it or what you're bringing to the table here, but the floor is yours, Tony.
All right, so. Like I said before, like I'm more of a collections guy than a single issue guy. I got my Grail Tale from like when I was a kid, and what sort of broke me of it was I wanted Gen 13 1/2 so bad. It was a wall book. It was a Wizard magazine mail-in. So like I don't know how old you guys are, but Wizard would have these coupons. And you send in the coupon with like $3 for shipping, and they would send you back like a 1/2 issue. And they would do it for all, like they did like an Astro City one that's great, and the Max had one, and they did one for Gen 13, which was like my favorite book because I love the art. I love J. Scott Campbell, and this was before the regular series came out. So there had just been like the 5-issue miniseries, and then the only other Gen 13 that there was at the time was this 1/2 issue. And somehow I missed it, or I didn't have 350 when it was supposed to be mailed off, you know. And so by the time I saw any of like a copy of it, it was on the wall at the comic store where I worked when I was in high school. And it was so high up on the wall that I couldn't even look inside of it. I just knew that I needed to have it. It was $60, which I made like $15 a week to like I would go into this comic shop and they would pay me $15 to come in on Wednesday and help them do polls. But that would all just be in trade. Like I would just get my comics for free, basically. But this time I had to save up for a whole month of pulls or bring in extra money or whatever to get this $60 Gen 13 1/2. I don't even think they gave me a discount on it. And so I got it, and I was so excited because I love J. Scott Campbell. And I opened it, and he didn't draw any of it.
Oh man!
Oh no!
It was just like it had some good artists in it, as I recall, maybe, but like it wasn't what I was looking for, and it was I just like that crushing disappointment of just like all the anticipation and saving up that $60, and then to just be like, oh, what? I could have got this for $3 if I'd just been on my game. So it sort of broke me of like lusting after key issues or wall books and stuff, and especially once collections came around and started having, you know, I'm just sort of like here for the content because I don't have the patience to sell stuff, you know, like so even if I have expensive stuff, it, like I'll never make money on it because I know I'm not going to put it on eBay. But so I do have Grail like collections or stuff that I that I treasure. So I'll throw my camera on so I can share. See how this goes. So the first one I'm going to talk about is this. It's from a box set. It's Russ Cochran is the guy that did these black and white collections of all the EC comics.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they're beautiful, like these beautifully printed hardcovers, all the EC comics in black and white, which I kind of prefer even if they were color the first time, because I feel like it's so hard to get like a good colorized or recolored version of things. But so he did those, but then he also in 1991 put out this collection of the Star Wars newspaper strips by the ones that were by Al Williamson and Archie Goodwin. Al Williamson's like my favorite Star Wars artist, I think. He is a genius. And so it's just these, you can see it.
I can see them.
Yeah. The Dark Horse collected them. They've been collected a lot of different times, but this I think is the best presentation of them. And it's like a limited set. They made 2,500 of them, and it came in this box set. And they're all signed by Archie Goodwin and Al Williamson, and they're just the best. Like I love them so much. Beautifully drawn Star Wars stuff. And then,
nice.
And then this one is like one of the books that sort of made me want to draw. My cousin, when I was a little kid, I would draw with my cousin who was like a teenager when I was a baby. But he would sit and draw cartoons with me while we'd watch cartoons, or we'd draw like the cartoons out of the Sunday paper. Or he had this book, but he had the paperback version of it, and we would draw out of this, and it's The Hobbit from Abrams. And as you can see, it's got like this cool acetate cover.
Yes.
But it's
based on, awesome.
Yeah, it's based on the Rankin and Bass cartoon, like all the illustrations on it. So it's the full text of The Hobbit, and then it's got the art from the Rankin and Bass cartoon. But what it also has is like production art and storyboards, but it's all just sort of presented like illustrations. And so the art is by the Rankin and Bass guys, like the people from Japan. But then they also have production art by Charles Vess and Gray Morrow and Walter Simonson. So like early Walter Simonson production art in here, which is super cool. One of my favorites. And like I said, it's got this cool acetate cover. So you got like the hobbits on the mountainside, and you got Smaug on this like cell overlay.
Yep. I don't think I've seen that specific book, but that art, I'm a huge like Tolkien fan. A lot of people get really deep into the Star Wars. I am into the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit and all that realm, I guess, Middle Earth. I love that stuff.
Those realms.
And I am I'm a huge fan of that book. I don't know, how hard was it to find a copy of that?
I got it off Amazon. I think it was around $100.
Okay.
So it sort of floats around there, but that was probably 6 or 7 years ago that I finally found it. Like I remembered that it existed. It's one of those things where like you have a memory from childhood and you're just like, oh, I wonder if that thing is as cool as I remember. And in this case, it totally was.
Nice.
And I got two more.
Yeah.
This is a more recent one. And it's this sort of artist edition. It's this book, Witch Hat Atelier. It's a manga.
No, I'm not familiar with it, but that is a hell of a cover, I gotta say.
Yeah.
It's got like gold inlay.
Yeah, it's got gold leaf on there. The sides are not gold like a Bible, but it's like a book. You know? White like a book. It's a book. But it's basically like an artist edition for this manga book, which has some of the prettiest art that I think comes out right now. It's like a currently running manga. The Tankobon collections come out like every 3 months. But it's this book. It's sort of like Harry Potter. It's this school for witches. There's this little girl named Coco, and she's not a witch. She just wants to know about magic, and she accidentally turns her mom to stone. And then so this like witch teacher shows up, and he takes her to witch school to teach her about how to use her powers, because only she can turn her mom back, because it's with her magic. Okay. But the way they do the magic in this book is all with like drawings and stuff. So it's a lot of like being an artist or going to art school, where it's people drawing together, and like whoever has the more detailed drawings has a better spell. But the art is beautiful. It looks. It always reminds me of like a Jim Chung or like a Gabe Rodriguez, like that sort of like detailed ink work. But like way more graceful. So I just love it. And it comes in this like slip case, and it's in Japanese, so I can't read it, the art book, but the volumes are obviously translated over here.
Yeah.
So this thing I'm very happy with. I don't know if it's rare. I just know it was expensive. And it's whatever. It's a grail to you kind of thing, and that's the point. And basically what you're saying is within that world, you would be one of the most powerful wizards in existence, right? I mean, when I was in art school, I was, it always depends on like what pond you're in. So I feel like if I was in a small witch school, I would probably be okay. But if I got into like the professional witch circles, then I would just be like a regular middle level witch. Then my last one is super hard to find. But probably not worth anything. But like I said before, when I was a kid, I loved Gen 13.
Yep.
And this, it's as you can see, like it looks like crap. The cover's not even by J. Scott Campbell, but it's basically an essential. Like Wildstorm did essentials for a little while. And so it's all the best Gen 13 issues. Like it's the miniseries and then like the first 13 issues of the main series. But they're all in black and white, which like I said before, I prefer, because I like to see the line art and like to see you know, like what the artist is really doing. It's sort of like the closest you'll get to like an artist edition.
Oh, that's cool. So it's more like a best of. It's not exactly a linear.
No, it's a linear. Like it's a.
Oh, okay.
It collects the first, like I said, the miniseries, and then the first 13 issues of the main series, and it might have that stupid ass 1/2 in here too. Let me see.
Damn you, 1/2.
Do you still have the half? Do you still have the 1/2?
I bet it's in the comic shed somewhere.
In
the old comic shed.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, there's a lot going on there. So I think that's it's cool that you keep all of those and you have them for different reasons. I would like to maybe dive a little bit more into, you know, when you started following these artists, you know, I know most of these were collected probably more recently. Mm-hmm. And I get, you know, that's kind of how you've gone about going back, and you know, it's like you said, when you remember the things from a kid, and you're like, oh, I wonder if they still have that. But in this particular case, were you thinking when you were trying to go out and refine these books, is it inspirational driven, or is it just a nostalgia? I feel like I probably should have that on my shelf kind of thing.
No, I think a lot of that stuff is inspiration. Like definitely all of those ones that I just showed are ones that I look at when I'm sometimes before you sit down to draw a piece. If you want it to have a certain vibe, I'll sort of fill up, you know, like you fill up the tank by just looking at art books or comics that you loved, or just sort of like try and get in a certain mind state. So a lot of that stuff, like I have just a metric ton of art books and comics, and I can never move from this house that I rent because it's just all books in here. And yeah, like almost all of that is just stuff that I like to pick up and sort of like get my head into that place, and then sit down and do my own thing. It's not like you're copying. It's like you're just like getting inspired, filling up on the stuff that inspires you, and then, you know, trying to do your best.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. And that's kind of why I was asking, because I know that especially when it comes to art, and everybody gets inspired in their own ways, but I was curious because the range of the artists that you were just describing in the books that you were showing us, like it really does cover the spectrum. You know, it's wide and broad. And so I was just curious if you were drawing inspiration from those, because I mean, they're all gorgeous, but it's all in such unique ways.
Yeah. My interests are sort of go in a million different directions. And I don't know if I really synthesize all of them, but it all sort of just sort of works its way through my system. And I find myself trying to do little things like, oh, you know, Kumomi Shirama, the artist of Witch Hat, would do something like this. Like she does these really delicate branches on trees and stuff like that. And so I'll try and find a way to put some of that into my work. But also I think about like how artists are as people, and how sometimes it just seems like that comes through. Like, I'm not like a deft or delicate person. And so I feel like when I try to draw like delicate little tree branches or leaves or stuff, I always feel like I'm just like stomping around in there with big boots on, branches, you know? And so I had to figure out like how to take that and harness it and make it into what my tree branches look like, or what my, you know, park benches look like, or fire hydrants or whatever.
Yeah. No, I think that's really cool. Hey, Zeus, did you have any follow-up questions or anything like that?
Yeah, man, I had a couple. I mean, that was really, really insightful and cool what you just said about kind of like taking somebody else's method or their voice, I guess, and kind of seeing how yours fits into that. But my question circles around like J. Scott Campbell. Yeah. And I don't know, you know, I haven't had the deep dive as Jake has, but one, you said you're a fan, right, of his. Have you had a chance, one, to kind of meet him and then maybe even collaborate on something, if you have?
Definitely not collaborate. Man, if we could have got him to do a Stray Dogs cover, that would have been crazy for me. He did a issue 1 My Little Pony cover years ago that I was so psyched about, even though I didn't draw that issue. If I had drawn that issue, I would have lost my mind, because like I said, I've been a huge fan since I was a kid. but I loved it. And like all the artists on the book were like, that's so cool. And then the fans of My Little Pony didn't know who he was and were just like, what the crap is this? That don't look anything like My Little Pony. I felt so bad about it because I always see that guy getting shit on the internet. I'm just like, leave Brittany alone. Like,
so what you're saying is like a J. Scott Campbell collaboration would be a potential future Grail for you.
Oh yes, for sure.
A lifetime.
I mean, just him collaborating with anybody, him doing any comics would be a Grail for me because he just does covers now for the most part. He did 2 or 3 pages in that Wildstorm 25th anniversary, and I was so excited. He did that, and then he did like 2 pages in Spawn that same month, and I was in hog heaven. Like I was just like, I can't believe it. He's back, baby. And then he went away again. I did meet him when I was again in that sort of formative years. I went to cartoon school, like as like an extracurricular after school thing. And they would have people come through and teach like seminars sometimes. And he came through and did one. Like he came, John Romita Jr. came one time, and a few other people. But yeah, that stuff was really, really lit a fire in my little artist soul. Yeah,
well, that's really cool. And so you mentioned something that Jesus and I both kind of perked up and laughed about. What is if he would have done a Stray Dogs cover? And I know that those variant covers have been. I mean, seriously, Stray Dogs and the variant covers. I feel like they took 2021 by storm. And I would be remiss if we didn't bring up the fact that Stray Dogs just lit up the world, especially over the summer. Like every month when they were dropping, you were like, what are the variants? Which ones are coming out? And you just grab, or, at least for me as a collector, I was grabbing them all or as many as I could get. Mm-hmm. And I know it's a weird thing to say. Did you expect it? It's a weird question, but did you think it was going to happen like that?
No. I mean, as we just mentioned earlier in the show, Jeff Steinberg Champion the Rip sells for $2.80 on Amazon right now. Like, I was not expecting a smash hit. I was just sort of hoping for like a ground ball. Like I just wanted to just sort of get it home,
make contact.
Yeah, and also because of like what the content of the book is. We always thought that like issue 3, if we could sell this book at all, when the numbers for the first issue came in, they were pretty good. Like everybody I talked to was like, oh, this is good for a first issue, not like smash hit, but like, oh, you're going to be fine. Like you'll get your thing out, which is great because we were just like, once 3 comes out, nobody's going to want to buy this thing anymore because I don't want to spoil it, but like it gets.
No, I've read it. 3. Yeah. 3 is that the one with the Dalmatian?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Gosh, I forgot to tell you. I'm so mad at you about that, Tony.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're sorry. We'll get to it, but we're working on more right now. We're actually working on Victor's story, the Dalmatian, right now for the new thing, and it's sort of like our love letter to Victor. And
wonderful.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because earlier you said that if somebody aided it in the War of the Bounty Hunters that you're attached to, how would you feel? Well, that's how you made us feel, Tony. So I just,
I killed Dr. Afra for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, man. No, but it's true, man. And I guess to piggyback on Jake's question about that is, I mean, you had to have some sense, right, of maybe it was a little bit more than a ground ball because it was optioned, right? It was optioned before it even came out, right?
Well, that just made us think like, okay, well, it's paid for, like that was all we really, because like we paid the layout artist and the colorist and the flatter and like all the people that worked on the book, we just were paying them out of pocket. And so we knew when it got optioned that like it was going to be paid for and we'd make basically like, a My Little Pony rate or slightly better than a My Little Pony rate for all 5 issues. So like it just covered everything. And so that felt good. I mean, if they decide to make the movie, then we're in great shape. Like then we get like real life-changing money and that would be great. But just when the option came in, it was like, oh, this is good. This sort of, I mean, definitely we weren't mad about it. We were happy, but it wasn't, we weren't just like, we got a smash hit on our hands. Cause Other books have come out that got optioned before they came out, and they didn't do what this, this was different. This definitely was unexpected and it just sort of blew up.
Well, and I want to say, I think one of the reasons why is we talked a little bit about your nostalgia with some of the things that you've gone back and picked up. And for me personally, one of the reasons that I immediately I didn't even know it had been optioned, honestly. Like, this was a pure, I want to read this comic book situation for me, where as a kid, a Five Goes West, An American Tale, Secret of Nim. Secret of Nim was huge. Like, it terrified me, but as a kid, I could not look away. Like, I loved that. I ran the shit out of that tape. That VHS tape was worn to just nothing, because I would just watch it, rewind it. And I always got scared because it was frightening, because it was so gritty. And that's what Stray Dogs immediately said to me when I looked at it.
No, that was definitely when I had the idea for the story, I knew that I wanted it to look like, part of the idea that I had was like, do this, but make it look like those Don Bluth movies. Make it look like the scariest parts of Secret of Nim, or start off having it look soft. Weirdly, it's not a Don Bluth movie, but Rover Dangerfield was an inspiration a lot too. Just sort of like that farmhouse, that style. And Balto was a real big one too, not a Don Bluth. But it was just sort of like, tell this story, this like mystery murder story, but use that sort of like soft, inviting 90s animated style to make people feel comfortable, and like you immediately, especially when Trish came on board, when she designed those characters, as soon as you see them, you love them. You just go like, oh, I know that dog. I love, like, what a sweet dog, and so make those the stars of the thing, and make those our heroes and our victims and our villains. And you can just sort of like put the whole story on these characters, and people attach to them, I think, more than they would if we drew them like realistic dogs. Just because you can put so much character in those cartoon dogs. And like you're saying, we're already used to rooting for those characters from watching All Dogs Go to Heaven, or Lady and the Tramp, or Oliver and Company. Like, we already have an affection for that sort of archetype, like that dog thing. And we didn't try and do like archetypes where like, this will be our 101 Dalmatian, or this will be like our, Tramp. From Lady and the Tramp. But we just sort of like, we knew if we drew it in that animated style, that it would sort of like evoke those feelings that people have for those. And then when we, threw in terrible stuff, it would really twist the knife, because even though the Don Bluth stuff got dangerous and people died in Secret of Nim and stuff, and like, no, it wasn't a super safe cartoon. I mean, like you said, it was terrifying.
Yeah, Nicodemus in it. It's not a spoiler. The movie came out 40 years ago or whatever. Yeah. Nicodemus, getting crushed by the cinder block in that. It still like echoes in my mind, like, holy, somebody get him out of the way. But he never does. He never gets moved. So,
it really sticks with you, right? Like, because you felt safe. Like, you felt like, oh, these are cartoons. These are like the Robin Hood boxes and stuff. Like, we're gonna be in good shape. And then you're not.
No.
So, that's what we try to do.
It disarms you, is what it does. It's like disarming, and then it smacks you in the face. I guess that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm happy about it.
You do owe us an apology, that's for sure.
So
okay, so but the other thing I wanted to discuss though is what is next for the dogs, right? I know you've got some new projects, or you've got is it multiple new projects in the works for the dogs, or is it just the dog days?
It's two more issues, Stray Dogs Dog Days, and then that's it for Stray Dogs. So when we originally pitched the book, we said we sent this document to Image, and it was like, here's what the story is in 5 issues. It was always 5 issues. But then if the book does do well by some miracle, and people want to know more about these dogs, we have these like 10 dogs that live in the house, and we'd like to do like a special or a one shot or like a mini series where we tell a story about each of those dogs, and sort of like how they got there, or what their life was like before, or what life was like in the master's house before Sophie got there, or any of these things. And there are like little questions and little setups that we had in the main series that seem unimportant, and in some cases are just unimportant. But it was just sort of like, well, we'd like to do a little bit more with that, or we'd like to sort of fill in that area right there. I think of it as sort of like they just had that Long Halloween one shot come out a couple weeks ago, where it's just like a little bit more Long Halloween, or they did the New Frontier one years ago, where it's just like New Frontier's all finished, but here's a little bit more. If you were a big fan of that thing. So that's what I was sort of, we called it like the Stray Dogs annual when we were writing it. It's just sort of like
nice.
Bonus content, Stray Dogs, Lord of the Rings extended edition, Stray Dogs.
Nice. Yeah, nice. That one speaks to me, really.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I did want to bring that up because the FOC date is
it's coming up in
upcoming.
It's either the 20th or it might be that Monday, the 22nd. Sometime around there. Shops know when FOC is, but if you're hearing about this and if you like Stray Dogs, let your shop know that you want the new Stray Dogs, because they got to have their orders in when this thing airs within the next week or so. And it's just 2 issues, and Image doesn't do reprints anymore, so it's not going to be. There is going to be a cover bonanza on the retailer side, like there's a lot of those retailer incentive covers, but there's not going to be the reprints after reprints like there were on the first series. It's just sort of like these first A and B covers, and then get them while you can. So.
Yeah. Well, I strongly recommend to everybody, if you have not read the original Stray Dogs, go out, and the trade is available, correct?
Yep. Yeah, it's in finer comic stores. It's online. You can get it anywhere. Bookstores. Yep.
And definitely go and, if you've already read it and you enjoyed it, which if you read it, there's no way you didn't enjoy it, because I loved it. I was reading it month to month. I was on the edge of my seat. Like, that was literally when I was getting it, it was always going to the top of the stack, right? Like that week I'd be like, all right, that's the one I'm reading first. But so it was very enjoyable. Go and, put your order in. Make sure you tell your LCS owner that you want the new Stray Dogs when it's coming out. It drops in December, correct?
Yeah, well, the first issue comes on the last Wednesday this year on December 29th. Yep. And then the second part comes out January 27th or 29th or something.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that we pop it again on our when we do our episode towards the end of the month of December. We'll let everybody know again, because I know it's probably going to be in my recent pickups. So
awesome.
That'll be fun.
It.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's end with the spec. Jesus, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'll do the traditional spec. So I have two-part spec, spoiler, non-spoiler. So I'm not going to talk about why, but just know that it's a spoiler. It's been all over the internet. I'm going to go with Daredevil number 170. This is the first appearance of Kingpin in the Daredevil title. It's also when Kingpin's name is revealed to be Wilson Fisk. I think that ASM 50 first Kingpin is getting really hot and pricey. This is also a small key to pick up where Kingpin is in the Daredevil title. He's one of Daredevil's bigger foes and villains, so I definitely think that's something to have. And then Moon Knight number 13. MCU's bringing Moon Knight, first battle of Moon Knight versus Daredevils. So I think that's a pretty big book. I don't think that they wouldn't cross paths at some point.
All right, bringing the Daredevil spec, huh? I wonder why. I wonder why.
Spoiler, no spoiler, man. That's all I'm saying.
I'm hyped about that Moon Knight show, actually. A buddy of mine is the showrunner on it, and he did the Exorcist TV show that was on probably like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That show was super good.
Yeah, it was.
I'm excited to see if he brings that same sort of vibe to the Oscar Isaac Moon Knight. That'd be rad.
It'll be interesting if they bring it that dark. Really, yeah. That'd be intriguing for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's if there's one show, Disney Plus show that I'm most hyped about, it's probably Moon Knight, to be honest. So, okay, Kenobi is going to be a good one, I guess. If they were, what show I'm looking forward to most? Amazon's Lord of the Rings show that they've been producing for like a decade now.
Yeah,
I've just been waiting forever. Okay, so Tony, for speculation, you'd mentioned earlier you're not much of a spec or that kind of a collector. And in cases like this, we would also just kind of maybe ask you if there's a book of yours, something that you've done that you think is underrated.
I don't speculate myself, but I do get speculated on. So I've got some stuff.
Okay, cool.
We'll bring it to the table. So this is the Stray Dogs. If you're hardcore, this is the one you want. This is the Stray Dogs preview edition. We printed up 200 of these, and we gave them away for free at Comics Pro, which is a retailer summit. As you can see, the logo is different. And it's printed on much heavier paper, and it says exclusive edition at the bottom there.
I see that.
Before we got like our final logo. But yeah, that's the first issue. Some things are different inside of it. Like there's some panels that we tweaked and changed in between then and when the book finally came out. But that's the most hard to find Stray Dogs that there is. I feel like that's the one I'd want if I was collecting. And then on the back of it, when I was giving them away, it came with this Time Shopper preview edition, which is the next book that I have coming out. It's a Kickstarter we just finished. And it was originally going to be at a small press publisher, and we printed up preview editions to give away at that same show. So that's another rare one. And who knows what Time Shopper is going to be. Like the Kickstarter campaign went really well. So we'll see if it ends up being something that gets spec'd on too. That would surprise me even more than Stray Dogs. But if you like Jeff Steinberg, keep an eye out for Time Shopper because it's definitely more of that kind of same vibe. And then in keeping with that, this is my first comic in my lifetime, and this is the preview of that, which is how it ended up getting a publisher. Like I had never made a comic. I drew this book and I printed up this ash can and took it to Wizard World Chicago. As you can see, it says Wizard World Chicago free preview. Yeah. I didn't know what I was doing, but I printed up like 100 of these. It's like my first ever comic work printed in here. And I pass it out to like every artist or writer or publisher that I liked. And one of them was like, oh, we published that. And so that's how I sort of got into the business. So that's sort of like your trip through hard to find rare Tony Fleecs books.
Those are the Tony Fleecs Holy Grails. That's what those are. Nice. I gotta say though, I don't own any of those yet, but I've never been to any of those cons that you just brought up, so I wouldn't have run into them. But I think those are all good. I actually also have a Tony Fleecs speculation book that I'm going to share with the group. And so here's the thing: the crossovers have become massive, right? The MCU is doing lots of crossovers, not just with characters, but within, the Sony and the MCU, and they're pulling in Tobey Maguire from, years ago, or at least speculation is. And now we're seeing Batman, we're seeing Michael Keaton come back into the new Batman movie, or Flash movie. And so they're crossing over all sorts of stuff. And I'm sitting here saying like, all right, these crossovers are selling like nuts. Everybody's going to be doing it. Pretty soon it's going to go nuts among other little cinematic universes. And who has a cinematic universe that actually makes a lot of money at the box office that people don't really think about? Hasbro. Tony, you know where I'm going with this. Hasbro Cinematic Universe has a lot of assets, including Transformers and My Little Pony. Now, I know what everybody's thinking. Wait, why are we crossing these two? Don't ask questions. Just read the book. It's a lot of fun. My Little Pony Transformers #1. It's a crossover. It's a fun book you did. What was that? Just 2019 or is that 2020?
Yeah, 2019. And then the sequel came out this year. So like same time as Stray Dogs. So I did that.
Yep. And a lot of people were looking forward to that sequel. Not that I'm saying it, you shouldn't be surprised about it, but a lot of people are really into this crossover between these two teams or characters or groups. And I'm just speculating. This is a very, very affordable book. You can get this book there's probably some still on the shelves at your local LCS or kind of in the back bins kind of thing. And I'm thinking here, Hasbro and their cinematic universe, I would not be surprised if we see some sort of a crossover coming between the My Little Ponies and Transformers.
I would be surprised. But the book, the weird thing about that book is that Hasbro was the ones that came to us originally, because before the book came out, we did a few like limited edition lithographs, and they would be at like BotCon or like different Hasbro events. And so I did like 2 or 3 My Little Pony Transformer crossover lithographs, which is sort of like purely flights of fancy. What would this be like?
Yeah.
And then they were like, we want to do this as a book. And this was in like 2014. And then they were going to do like this whole like multimedia, cover all the quadrants thing where they put out like the comics, and then they would put the toys together in a package where it would be like 1 pony and 1 transformer, and it would come with a comic. Like they were going to do this whole big push for it. And then some people moved around at Hasbro, and the new people that came in were just like, what? No, we're not mixing girl toys and boy toys. Quickly and crazy. But we had gotten started on it. I'd drawn a cover for it, and this lady named Georgia had written like a pitch for it, which ended up not even being the story that they ended up doing. But it was basically for 5 years I was going like, when are we going to do that book? And they were like, yeah, Hasbro doesn't care about it anymore. And I was like, well, next time you talk to them, tell them how cool it looks when ponies and transformers are next to each other, and like how the soft, there's like a juxtaposition, it's like soft and magical, versus like hard and robotic. So I was always pushing for it, and finally in 2018, they were like, okay, they want to do it, and so we started working on it.
Nice.
And I got to repurpose this old cover that I had. I sort of like dusted it off and put a new coat of paint on it. So I had done this cover in like 2014, and then finally in 2019 it ended up coming out and actually being a comic.
It's just it's kind of like when it's so far out there, it's got to be that unique good, where it's just like, it's like the guy who originally thought to mix peanut butter and chocolate, right? Like, it's like that guy who was just like, what happens if we put these two together? And it's like, this is really good,
I was thinking, less successfully, the guy who thought to mix Archie and the Punisher. So.
Wait, did they do that?
Yeah, in the 90s, Archie and the Punisher. The Punisher, he was chasing some drug dealers that looked like the Riverdale kids. and the Punisher ends up thinking that Archie's a drug dealer.
Archie got crossed with Predator too, man. That to me was like, what?
Yeah. Those poor kids in Riverdale have really been through the ringer.
Especially if you watch the show now on Netflix, man. The drama in that.
Sexy ringer.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the show, and we're maybe running a little bit longer. Tony, thanks for sticking with us, even though we went over the time we promised you. But honestly, this was a ton of fun. I hope that we covered, all of this stuff. In fact, just real quick, let's go over, where can people find you? We've talked about all your work, but where can they find you on the internet if they want to see more of your stuff?
Yeah, find me at Tony Fleecs, Fleecs, on Instagram and Twitter. I'm on Facebook, but that's mostly just like me talking to my aunts and uncles and stuff. But there is a Facebook Stray Dogs group where they like trade issues of the comic and talk about the books and stuff and complain about how many variant covers there are. So you should definitely search that out if you're a fan. If you want to know about like if you're speculating too, like they get sort of like the first news about what's coming out and what like these retailer incentive covers. Those retailers will go in that place and just be like, hey, I got this many. They're coming on this day. Get ready for the drop. So they get sort of a heads up on that stuff, which is good because I don't have the time to send out
warn everybody. Yeah.
So luckily it's one of those problems that the internet took care of for me. Thank goodness. Those guys are the best. They just were just like, oh, we'll tell people when this stuff's coming. So
perfect.
That's recommended for Stray Dogs fans. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Wonderful. Everybody go out, find Tony's books. They're all enjoyable. The ones that he's writing in, both the ones that he's doing the artwork for. He's an extremely talented guy, and he was generous enough to come on our Tiny Ass podcast, which, all 5 of you, he did this for you. So
That's 5 more sales right there if I did my job.
Exactly. But that said, thanks everybody for listening. It was a lot of fun. Tony, it was a pleasure. Everybody, have a good week.
Bye.